Greetings, everyone. I am Taisha Essex back with another great video. Tonight, you are in for an absolute treat. You are joined by my Cincinnati sister, Nadia Ruff, and you know her as Urban Farm Sister. How are you doing tonight, Nadia?
I'm doing awesome. How's everyone doing tonight?
Everybody's doing great. We are live. And if you don't know Nadia, oh my gosh, I could sing your praises all day. But in a nutshell, not only is she my Cincinnati sister, she is our sister who started out as a entomologist, infectious disease investigator, and she is the owner of Kiwi Produce in Cincinnati, Ohio, as well as the founder of Agri Academy. Can you tell us about your ventures and just have us just doing the applause for you because you are so great?
Oh yeah, my adventures into agriculture and science started when I was a young child. I've always been interested in science, insects, animals. And what's it's really funny is that I lived in a city. So when I would say like, I want a farm and all this stuff, my parents looked at me like I was crazy because I lived in the city. We didn't live in the country or anything. But as I got older, um, I always wanted to be a veterinarian. So that was really what started out my whole journey into this whole science and medicine and all this stuff. Um, well, uh, when I was in high school, like I had took anatomy and physiology and I had learned about diseases of the body, and I was always interested in like, how insects uh can cause disease and things. And so I had did this whole paper about vector borne diseases and stuff. And so when I went to college, I was like, I want to be a veterinarian that does like kind of like that movie Outbreak, where they would go and try to figure out diseases and how they spread, and usually it's a mosquito or some type of insect that was the vector for it. So I went to undergrad. I ended up getting sick in undergrad, and so my grades had dropped. I got diagnosed with a thyroid disorder, and so me actually going to vet school was kind of like out of the options now because of my grades and things like that. But I still maintain that entomology aspect of my education. So during that same time, I was working in animal research. I was working in veterinary medicine, because if you're going to apply to vet school or med school, you always have to have like all these hours where you've actually learned, like shadowed under a vet or some type of researcher or something. So I had all these different positions, and I was learning about all this stuff. So when I graduated, I ended up getting a job at the University of Georgia. Um, where I was actually investigating prion diseases that were in deer that lived in the southeastern states. So hunters would go and hunt these deer, and we would have to test them for diseases called chronic wasting disease in deer. It's the same disease that causes mad cow disease in cows, and it causes scrapie in sheep. It's the same type of disease. It's caused by prions, and so I did that for like almost 4 years. Then I moved back to Ohio. Um, and then I started working at the veterinary school at Ohio State. It was a lot of issues working in that position as far as racial things. But what I did notice, because I was working in veterinary oncology, is that all these animals were getting cancer, and then the people that were the owners of the animals, they were also getting cancer. And I like why is this happening? And then I started thinking, you know we're eating the same food, we're all drinking the same water, we're all breathing the same air and things like that. And so that's what really started me on this whole venture of learning how to cultivate and grow my own food. Prior to me going to school and all that, my parents, they actually own a flower shop here in Cincinnati. So I grew up in a flower shop. So that might have been part of where I got my desire to be a farmer and things. But it was just always this calling where I always wanted to, find solutions to either diseases that were caused by some type of insect, or in this case, figuring out how to fix the problems that were created through the agriculture industry. Also, going to school and majoring in agriculture and work in these positions, because I worked in labs. I worked at the Ohio Department of Agriculture. I worked at University of Georgia. I worked at Ohio State University. I worked at University of Cincinnati. There wasn't many black people in these positions, and so that was also my goal, is to try to get more black people involved in agriculture and science, because we need that. We really see that we need that right now, because we have all these shortages and stuff going on. We're always the ones to bear that weight of when something goes wrong. We're the ones that are excluded, or we're going to get the worst end of things. And so at this point, we already don't have grocery stores in our neighborhoods and stuff, and then we already have shortages. They're going to take care of their people first, and then we're just going to get what's left over, if there is anything left over. And so that's what kind of kicked off this whole agriculture, pushing black people into the agriculture field, not just into farming, but into the field as a whole, because there's so many things that we could do in this industry.
Wow, that is so amazing. Like your story, I swear, I want to see your biopic and, books. Little girls with their lab coats on, and I'm Nadia Ruffin. That is amazing. And one of the things that I wanted to use as an icebreaker tonight, I really did not know too much about my history, my ancestors, and things like that. It's just my grandmother. I grew up seeing her grow aloe in country crock bowls. She can grow anything.
Yes.
And once I moved to Hawaii, that's when I went on a vegan journey, and because I was in a tropical climate, I'm like, I'm growing everything myself. So I had a greenhouse from big lot to the backyard. I was growing everything from kale to cucumbers to bell peppers. But
Yes.
my mother, she sent me an article that featured my great great grandfather, and as I shared with many, my maternal roots are here in Georgia. So
Okay.
tonight, I thought it would be appropriate, and Nadia, I wanted to share this with you as well. This is an article that featured my great grandfather. This is my great great grandfather here. He's up in this was his land up in Conyers, Georgia.
Okay.
And this article here was written about him once he moved to Cincinnati. I mentioned, after he came back from the war, he went ahead and moved to Ohio. So hopefully everybody can see this here. But the title is "Unearthed Bones Create a Scare." Augustus McMullen, 73. Now he is 73. Was enlarging his garden at 15 Parchment Place Tuesday afternoon when he received a shock. This should have said McMullen, but it says Parchment Street. But McMullen dug up a plastic sack of what looked and smelled badly. Patrolman Jack Packett, District 4, responded, did some more digging, and exhumed 5 more 1 pound plastic sacks filled with similar contents. He radioed for the homicide squad. Detective Bob Bloom, Bob Meisner, and Bernie Kursker responded, expecting to see a grisly work of a mad murderer. They took the plastic sacks to the morgue. Further investigation revealed the previous owner of McMullen's home worked for a meat packing firm. Several hours later, Dr. Frank Cleveland, Hamilton County coroner, ruled that the contents of the plastic sacks were chicken parts and other animal meat. This is him, 73 years old. I'm telling you, when I talk to um, older people who are farming and things like that, they say the soil, the earth keeps them young.
Yes,
And
it
for him to
does.
be 73 outside working, enlarging his garden, there's something in growing your own food that is the key, the key to the fountain of youth.
Yes. Well, I noticed that because I purchased an empty lot here in Cincinnati, and I turned it into an urban farm. And I'll have older people walking past, and they'll see me out there. And I done had so many conversations that I think I would have never had with these individuals had I not set that up. But the first thing they tell me is like, "Oh man, I remember when I used to live in Georgia or Alabama, and my parents and we used to harvest our own stuff, and I wish we could do that. We could start doing that up here again, because they said the food was so much better." And they'll start telling me about all their little, this is their history and their family and their heritage. And it's like, yeah, if I had never set this up, I would have never even gotten this knowledge. Like, there used to be a lady that lived across the street from my lot. Her family were actually sharecroppers in Kentucky. And so they used to live in Kentucky, and so she would tell me the stories about her being a sharecropper. And so that's when I was first starting out in 2013. So I would plant stuff, and I would have her tell me if it was looking right and all this stuff, because she had grown a whole bunch of different crops, and then she would give me all these pointers and all this. And so she would just sit on her porch and she was like, I just enjoy watching the stuff grow. And like, she would just sit there and they would watch it for me and things. And it was just like, like it opened up a whole nother world that I would have never been privy to had I not set any of this stuff up.
And having this common language today, I mentioned I got to give a shout out to Val. Hi Val, she's at Sally's, and I was like, yeah, I gotta hurry up and get home. I'm going live with my sister. She's a farmer up in Cincy. She's like, and that just sparked a whole conversation about her family and how land was passed on to them. And she's like, wow, I'm so happy I met you because I don't know what to do. I'm like, well, tune in tonight. So if you're watching, hey Val, how are you doing? She would be
Hey,
in
Val.
contact with you. And tonight I'm happy that we are having this conversation because we have a history in farming. As you stated, not often are people in positions, in key positions, are represented in farming. And we had our first comment tonight, and I was going to erase it, but Nadia, I thought about you immediately because whenever we get together to discuss constructive things and things for our people after all of the terrorism that not only we in this current generation have endured and probably our descendants will endure, but what our ancestors have endured. So since someone wanted to be on the summer jam screen, it was 80 degrees here in Georgia today, so it's hot, baby. I'm turning the fire up on you. And remember, Nadia, with your work, you're not bothering anybody. You're not trolling. You're minding your own daggone business. Started, constructive avenues for us to become empowered and to claim our place in agriculture. What can you share? What have you been through, on your plight?
Oh yeah. So his little comment, I've seen this multiple times.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's always, why don't you include white people, or why are you being exclusive only to black people? And I used to try to argue with them, and I was like, I don't know, I don't owe these people any explanation. They know the history. They know the history of what their people have done. And then yeah, like him, he's claiming he's Irish and things like that. But what happens when they come to this country? An Irish person is going to be considered Caucasian. They're not going to be considered anything other than that. So they're going to get those benefits that Caucasian people get. And so for them to come on here and rant and rave about that, and I'm sitting here like, okay, there's millions of other platforms that if you feel that you're being excluded from, go to those. Like, I done told them, you don't have to follow me. Then they'll keep going on and on. Some of them have to block, because they feel like they have to be involved in everything. And anytime you're coming up with something on your own, it's like, oh, how dare you exclude me from that? And I'm like, but you guys exclude us from everything. I
People
wouldn't
exclude
even.
us all the time, whether
Yes,
it's through language, through closed doors.
yes,
And you know
funding.
what? Thank
Yes,
you.
all of that.
I mean, I've traveled across the country a number of times, and I've never come across a black area that wasn't bombed or black people weren't chased out of. And
Yes,
shout out to Tariq Nasheed. He just uploaded one of his Twitter spaces where he was saying like, hey, when Irish people and others come to the US, they change their last name and fit in with the dominant society. We can't change our last name. We can't change our skin. But I noticed with offenders, guilty parties, they want to victimize you and bully you, and they want you to just be quiet. They want you to curl up in the corner and pray about it and then forgive it and take it to the grave.
yeah,
No, we're going to speak up. We're going to speak out about it. We're not going to tolerate it and take this block right here, say the hell off my damn channel. So
yes.
we're going to go ahead and block this one. So go to hell.
But yeah, I've experienced that. And then, like, I used to be a disease investigator. I used to work at Hamilton County Public Health, and I was educating the people during this whole COVID thing. Um, and then I got hit with, Well, you don't know what you're talking about, and I work in this field. This is what I told you from high school up until this point. This is what I was dreaming for. Like I always wanted to work for the CDC. I don't want to now, but and it was at one point in time I was like, oh man, that's exactly what I would want to do. I would want to go out and figure out where these disease outbreaks and try to prevent them and all this stuff. And so when I'm educating people on that, and I'm educating them on like what's going to be the next steps and stuff. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know this, that, and the other. And everything I said came to fruition. Everything. And so it's like, you know what? I'm not gonna sit and argue with you people. I'm just gonna let it play out. And then you all come to me like, oh, you were right. You were right. Yeah, I sure was.
Oh my gosh, I call it SHIT talk, but your TikTok was even impacted by all of this, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, and then it came out that the fact checkers were false checkers. It was some BS, but
Yes.
that leads us to our talk tonight, which is challenges faced by Black farmers throughout history, today, and maybe even into the future. And so, you had shared, because this is Black Heritage Month. Like
Yes.
I said, I give credit to you, Black heritage, because we have a heritage, we have a culture, and it is beautiful, and we
Yes.
are not extinct. That's why we don't say history over here. But
Yes.
you shared something last month. Can you give us an intro to what it is, or do you want to talk after I play it
You can go ahead and play
about
it.
Dr. King? Okay, just
Yes.
1 second. I'm going to share screen, and I'm going to make sure I click share audio as well.
Okay.
There we go. Got it. I clicked that first.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps.
All right.
At the very same time,
Powerful. And there's only one particular speech that they credit Dr. King with, but he was deep. He was deep.
Yes.
So I'm gonna give you the floor on that one.
So yes, I don't think a lot of people understand when he had made that speech, and it was only like a 2 minute. It wasn't really a speech. He was at a church and he was about to kick off the oh, I forget which campaign it was, the one right before he got assassinated. And he was at a meeting and he was making this statement, and it was only 2 minutes long. And it was saying, this is how we got to the point where we are. And so when he was saying, they were giving millions of acres of land away, that was when Lincoln had signed the Morrill Act, which was the Morrill Act, which was in 1862. It was to allow anybody that came from Europe that came over here, they were going to give them land. This is when he also established the United States Department of Agriculture, the USDA. And it was the Homestead Act that was signed also. So the Homestead Act said that they would give these individuals a certain amount of land, and if they farmed it for 5 years, they could have it free. All they had to pay was like this little fee. They were able to farm this land for 5 years, and then it was theirs. They owned it after that, as long as they farmed it for that 5 year period. And so at that time, if you can pull it back up, you don't have to play it again. But at that time, what happened is that millions of acres of land were given to these white individuals that were coming straight from Europe. And it was when they were taking over the West. So they were building the railroads and all this stuff at the same time. And so they were taking away Native American land and they were giving it to these white individuals. And at the same time, around they were freeing black people supposedly, at the same time, and they were giving this land to these white individuals. Well, they were giving us nothing. So during the same time too, this is when we had the sharecropping pop up right after. It was like about 1865 is when sharecropping started to come very prevalent, because they had given us this promise that we were going to get 40. That's where this 40 acres and a mule came from. It was only for freed black people that were living in the north, and it was some land that was over in South Carolina, North Carolina region, along the coast. They had took this land from southern farmers. This is when they were having the Civil War and all that, and so it was kind of to punish them. They were taking their land. Well, they had given this land to these freed farmers, which is probably mostly now the Gullah Geechee people. Um, but they had gave the land, and then when these white farmers said that they would join the North, you know, they would not secede from the country and all this stuff. Then they took that land from those black people they gave it to, and they gave it back to the white people. And what happened is that's when they created sharecropping. So these black people, they were left landless, and they had to find a way to grow food for their families and things like that. So they would sharecrop. Some of these individuals were slaves in these places. So if you can't get land and your owner, now he's your employer, he will allow you to stay there, but you were a sharecropper. And what happened is you would grow all this stuff, and at the end, when you were supposed to get your portion, they would just take your portion from you. And they were still in slavery. This is also when we had the 14th and 15th Amendment come about. So it was a lot of stuff going on in this little time frame. And so when he was saying about they gave them loans, so that the loan thing didn't come about until 1916, I believe. But basically what they did is that they were giving out loans, the same loans that if we tried to apply for it, even now, we get all this runaround before they would give it to us. But they were giving them loans so they could buy equipment, uh, fix up their farms, all types of stuff. And then there was another act that was passed. It was called the Agricultural Adjustment Act, which still exists today, where they actually pay farmers not to farm. And this is how they control the markets. So when you're hearing about now, there's a shortage of all this stuff, know that they're using that Agricultural Adjustment Act now to pay farmers not to farm. So now they're telling farmers to put their land in conservation because they're eroding the soil and all this stuff, and they need to let the land rest, blah, blah, blah. They have all these excuses. But anyway, so to put it in conservation, you get paid to put it in conservation, but you got to keep it in there for 10 to 15 years. So there's farmers being paid for 10 to 15 years not to farm on their land, which is if they're cutting down land that they're using to grow crops on, that's going to cut down on what's available in this country. Now, granted, we import probably more stuff than we actually grow here, but then we also had those issues with the importing. I don't know if you guys recently saw that, you can't get avocados right now from Mexico because the United States has banned them because one of their inspectors was threatened by one of the cartels over there in that region. It's this one little region where the United States gets all their Mexican avocados from, and it's a multi-billion-dollar business right there in this one little, they call it a little what do they call it, county or province, I can't remember what it is. But it's this one little region where it's like perfect land. It's right by a volcano, so the soil is excellent. The temperature stays pretty much the same all year long. So it's a perfect place to grow things. And so the cartels found out about this, and so they started going in there and they started, strong holding these avocado growers because they were making billions of dollars if exporting these avocados to the United States. So, it's going to get really interesting because if they're going to start problems with Mexico, we get a lot of stuff from Mexico. The avocados ain't just the only thing. And if they're going to start those issues, and we get most of our stuff, if they do grow it here in the United States, it comes from California. California's running out of water. They also have all those forest fires, all this other stuff. So this is a great opportunity for Black people that have land, and you don't even have to have land to actually enter into this agriculture industry. And you don't always have to be a farmer. We'll talk about that a little bit, but I just wanted to give you a guys how we got to where we are now, because there's even a lawsuit right now for money that was supposed to go to socially disadvantaged farmers, not just Black farmers, that's being held up because white farmers filed a reverse racism lawsuit saying that uh, the USDA should not just allocate money to a particular race. They should allocate it to all farmers that are in need. And so the Biden administration had passed some legislation last year. Yeah, they were supposed to start getting their money in June of 2021. And what happened is that these a group of about 13 farmers, and then the banks got into it. Like the white institutional banks got in saying, well, they didn't want the loans being forgiven because then they couldn't make money off the interest that they were going to get from those people over the duration of their 30-year, loan and all this stuff. So this whole thing could be held up for years. And as a result of that, these Black farmers that were promised that their loans were going to be forgiven, now they're starting to get collection notices from the USDA telling them that, oh, your payments are behind. USDA says they were required by law to send these letters out, but they're not going to act on this right now because of this law being, this loan forgiveness being held up in the courts. But the USDA has never been trustworthy. So, they were created in 1862 to discriminate against Black people, and they have held on to that, that way of running that whole organization since 1862. I can't imagine them having any different way of running things, that they're going to eventually start calling those loans and going to start taking those people's land. We went from the early 1900s having millions of acres of land owned by Black farmers, and we had over 1 million Black farmers, to now we're down to, in the last farm census, I think it was about 45,000. This was before COVID. So COVID hit, we may not have that many Black farmers left because they probably lost their land through these loans because they couldn't pay them, all this other stuff. So it's a lot going on even right now, that we need to address in our own communities.
You just dropped so many gems on us. You are just incredible. We talked about different challenges that Black farmers face, not only through natural causes such as climates and regions and um, diseases and crops and stuff like that, but now we're talking about legislation. And I remember you shared an article where I believe it started here in Georgia with someone named Rafael Warnock, and how that has negatively impacted Black farmers. Can you speak on that?
So Rafael Warnock, he's the one that actually brought forth the bill to have the Black farmers receive that um, the debt forgiveness that was supposed to take place last year. If it At first it was Cory Booker that he had brought forth some legislation and he wanted to get it passed, and his had this whole plan of actually giving Black farmers back land. The funny thing is that they always lead these things with Black farmers, but if you get down in the nitty-gritty part of the fine print, it's always says socially disadvantaged farmers. So to explain what the USDA considers socially disadvantaged, you have to either be African American, Black, Latino, Native American, or you would have to be, sometimes they put Asians in there, sometimes they don't. It does not look at gender, it just looks at your race. So this was the issue that these white farmers had with the USDA when they came out, when Warnock put forth this legislation, and then when the Biden administration passed it during that COVID recovery plan. This was the issue because they led it saying black farmers. And anytime you put the word black in front of anything, it doesn't matter if it's for loans, if it's just for a free coupon at McDonald's, if it's there specifically for black people, that triggers people to like, oh no, black people ain't supposed to get anything. They're not supposed to get anything. If they're getting something, then I'm supposed to be getting it too. And that's
just like this video. Black people getting, they got to talk about black stuff. Oh, you doing it? Get in our business.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So as a result of this, had they probably led it with like, say, just saying socially disadvantaged farmers, it might not have gotten so much press. It would still got some negativity to it because they still don't think anybody that is socially disadvantaged is supposed to get anything. But other groups do get more than what black people do. If they had led it as, Asian farmers need to get this, it would have been probably passed and they would have got their money and all this. Everybody would have got their money. But because they led it with black people, it was almost like they really didn't want it to pass, because they would have led it with any other group, it probably would have went through fine with no problems. But when you say black people first, it's like, okay, we're going to throw this out here and we know it's going to trigger people. And then what happened, it triggered 13 white farmers, the banks that were holding these loans and all this, to the point that they filed a lawsuit against it saying, well, the USDA should not be giving out any type of funding just based off race. And so they filed a reverse racism lawsuit. That whole thing was brought forth by Warnock. And so this is how this has played out. And it's still up in limbo at this point. But he led it, again, putting black farmers first, almost to the point where it's almost like they didn't want to go through. So this could be years of them fighting to get this money, forgiven. And, they're not going to go years without having these bills paid. So eventually they're going to say, they're going to call them in and they're going to be like, you know what? This might take another 20 years. We need our payment. You're 10 years behind, because it you never know how long this is going to take. Ignite. They might start calling them in this year. They might wait 5 years to where you've mounted up so much debt that they're not going to be able to pay it. So then guess what they're going to do? They're going to take the farm, or if they use that loan to buy equipment, they're going to take that equipment or those animals or whatever it is. And that, I think that was their whole plan, to get them all caught up in there. Because you don't see on the news, you don't see any of the other socially disadvantaged groups complaining. You don't see any of that. All you see is articles about black farmers. But it's supposed to, it was more Native American farmers that were going to benefit from this than black farmers. But you don't see anything in the news pushing, Native American farmers are going to make this money. They're going to get this money back on these loans and things like that. It's just simply the black ones to create drama and create triggers. And that's what they do. They always throw us in there to create confusion.
We heard that before. They'll take both sides of an argument, and the mission is to create confusion, to keep everything up in the air, because when they waste time, it wastes money. And like you said, after the person who is being wronged, who was going to benefit through fighting, their resources are exhausted and they end up losing. And I'm so glad and thankful that you pointed that out. So that brings us to the solution. We can't fight this or wait for someone else to come in and save us. And I'm empowered through your academy, Agri Academy. I was trying to describe Agri Academy, but you pretty much did it with the title Agri Academy, and also your course, Black Empowerment Through Agriculture. Can you tell us about that?
Okay, so Agri Academy is a nonprofit organization. It's a research organization that I created back in 2016. Agri Academy itself, like I said, it's a research institution. So we do research in agricultural, all different areas of agriculture. I specialize in entomology. We also do agri-tech, and then biotechnology. So with biotechnology, we have to come up with new ways to grow plants and, eventually even, better animals and things, because what we have right now that they're using it's poor quality. Like when you go to the grocery store, the stuff that you're eating isn't of best quality. And what they've done, they just, made it, or they created genetically modified things and all this stuff. And so you have to come up with a way to counter that, because that food really isn't good for us. But so Agri Academy was created to get more Black people. It's for socially disadvantaged, with an emphasis on particularly Black people, into the field of agriculture, not just farming, but into agriculture. People always think when I say agriculture, I'm just talking about a farm with some cows and some chickens, maybe some horses and stuff. And I'm like, no, that's just one type of farm. And then you have this visual in your head that some white person owns that. And that's not farming. That's not just farming. That's not what agriculture is. So, with Agri Academy, we teach. We also do a community outreach and things, and we teach all these different different classes and stuff. And so we created Black Empowerment Through Agriculture. It was funded through the United Way of Greater Cincinnati, where we're trying to get more Black people here in Cincinnati into the field of agriculture by starting some small scale operation. So a lot of it could be, farming, but we need Black people in logistics as far as delivering this stuff. We need Black people in marketing. We need Black people in research, science, all of that. And we're just not there right now. Like during that time, like when we were talking about the video that Dr. King, when he was the speech, during that same time in 1890, they created what are the Black land grant schools. So in 1865, they created the white land grant schools. Black people couldn't go to those schools. So they created the land grant ones in 1890 so that Black people could go to those schools and they couldn't go to the white ones. So in the South, you always see there's two A&T type schools in the South in each state. And some states have even more. Like in Alabama, you have Tuskegee, and then you have Auburn. Auburn was the white school. They would not let us go to Auburn. So the USDA created other schools for us to go to. So when I say that, they still had some ownership in these schools. They provided the funding. They didn't give them any land, though. They called them land grant schools. They didn't give them land, but they gave them money to create these schools. Which was totally different from the white universities, where they gave them hundreds of acres of land, and then they also gave them money. They gave them county agents, all of that stuff. And so as a result of that, if you look at the land grant schools now that are the 1890s, the Black schools, they aren't really Black anymore. Like a lot of them are being populated with people that come from India, as well as other ethnic groups. And then the Black people, they're not being told about, agriculture and stuff. Tuskegee, I think, is still on the level of where they still recruit mostly Black people. But if you go to these other schools, a lot of times you can't even tell that's an HBCU. You can't even tell it's a Black-owned university, because the directors, the teachers, the professors, everybody don't even look like us. And so, they're not pushing Black people into agriculture. Number one, they know how much money agriculture brings into this country. Agriculture is the foundation of this country. If you rip agriculture away, this country wouldn't exist. I mean, agriculture, it's not just food. It's our fuel. It's our waste management. It's our air. It's our, our land, all of that. It's buildings, all this stuff that we utilize, all these different industries utilized, it always comes back to agriculture being the foundation for it. Even when it comes to medicine, for them to create those medicines, you sometimes they use plants, sometimes they use animals, they have to use research. All of that is agriculture. And so I created Agri Academy to get more Black people into this field. Like I say, you don't have to be a farmer. Everybody doesn't have to be a farmer. But I want to see more Black people, even starting at a young age, considering this as something that they would want to enter into. So with Black Empowerment Through Agriculture, it's a 8-week program that actually our new classes started last night. And it was a great turnout. And it's all online. But basically, we're going to show you all these different industries that you can get into inside the Black empowerment. Inside agriculture. You can start a small scale operation. So we focus on people that have 10 acres or less. You can start a farm inside your basement. You can start a farm in a closet, or you got a backyard. You can start it in your backyard. But I also want people to understand the difference between farming and gardening. Gardening is for personal use. Farming is for profit. So you're growing for profit. And so in that class, we explain like what the farm, what it means to be a farm and all this stuff. And then to take you through all these things, you have homework, you have quizzes, you have a final exam, and then you also create a business plan. And then with that business plan, if you get an 80% for the class or higher, if you live in the greater Cincinnati tri-state area, we have a hands-on class that's going to take place over the summer where you're going to actually run one of these operations, so you can get a feel of how you can be a farmer, or you can be a person that owns an agribusiness here in Cincinnati. And so that's what we're working on with the Black empowerment through agriculture. Then we also have programs where we go into the schools, especially the inner city schools, because a lot of these kids, they've never been exposed to anything agricultural. They live in the city. And so people think because you live in the city that the land is different than the land that's in the country. This is all earth. We just happen to put buildings on this land, but it's the same land up 71 that's the same land down here in Kennedy Heights. So I mean, like, we have to we have to realize that. We also have to realize that you don't have to start out farming 100 acres of land. Even if you have that, you don't have to farm all 100 of it. Just like I was telling you, you can put some of that land in conservation and be paid for that. There's all these programs and things to do that. You can use it for agritourism, where you have people, they can camp on your land, or you can give guided tours. It's all types of things that you can utilize your land for, that you don't necessarily have to farm it. Now, if you want to farm it, there's a whole bunch of different things that you can be growing different ways. You don't always have to farm in the soil. You can use hydroponics, you can use aquaculture, aquaponics, things like that. You can grow mushrooms. They don't even require you to grow them in the ground and all this stuff.
Down here, I'm seeing a lot of solar farms pop up, solar farming.
Yes, that's something that we need to get into, because if you're providing power to a community, and then they pay you to provide that power to like Duke and all these other places. And so you get paid for that, and you're not having to do any work. Those solar panels are just sitting there and you're not doing any work. And there's grants out there to help you set that up. There's even some Black-owned companies that set those things up, and we have contact with them and all this stuff, because we're trying to get that for a farmer down in Savannah, and then some people in Virginia and all this other stuff. So these options are out there, but the thing is, nobody's coming to tell you about them. And most Black farmers in the South, they farm cattle. Not saying anything is wrong with cattle, because I like steak and stuff and whatever, but we all can't farm cattle, and cattle farming is very expensive. It's very labor intensive, and you're competing with people like Tyson, because we don't have any processors. We don't have any Black-owned processors, and there's only 4 main processors here in the United States. And Tyson, and it's another big company. They dominate that market. So if they are growing their own cattle and their own chicken and stuff, and then you're having to utilize them to process your stuff too, they're not going to give you the best price for you to process your stuff so you can make a profit, because they're trying to make a profit also. They're not going to help their competition out compete them. So that's something else we need. We need processors. There was, I think $10 million given out here in Ohio by our governor here for people to start processing companies here in Ohio. Of course, we weren't privy to that. No, but they didn't tell us about that. But yeah, each one of facilities got $250,000 that they split in half. They gave you the first half to see if you would follow through with what you said you were going to do. And they were just trying to create 130 new jobs, 103. I can't remember. It was 800 something jobs here in Ohio. And this just happened. They just gave this money out, $10 million. And when you look at the ones that got it, because I posted it on my Instagram, it was they're all in these counties that are 99, 100% white here in Ohio. Because most black people only live in the city regions. They live either in Cincinnati, Columbus, Toledo, or Cleveland. And then there's Youngstown, but that's still in the Cleveland area. But beyond that, you have all these other counties that are farm counties that we don't live there. And there's a whole history of why we don't live there too, because they chased us out of those places when we tried to colonize those areas. There's this whole paper about Cincinnati. It explains like why it even operates the way it does now as it pertains to black people. Every time we tried to establish something, we would get chased out of here, or they would come in and hang us, burn it down. There's riots, they don't talk about that. It's kind of like kept secret, but there's all these papers out where, and you can find even the newspaper articles where black people were thriving here. We had our own school system. And then right after, civil rights and all that stuff, they had to merge it with Cincinnati Public. But we had our own school system. And we were doing great. We were making more money than the white people, and they were writing that in their newspaper. Like, I don't understand how these black people are surviving. They're reporting in their paper that they're doing all these racist things to them, and they're still thriving and doing better than them. And it was like, see, they know what they're doing. We ain't got to sit here and explain nothing to them. They know exactly what they do. And so it was like, so looking at that, and then, people are always trying to act like we have to rely on them when we don't. I'm trying to get us to a point where we don't have to rely on the USDA. The USDA is never going to do right by us. We just need to get that in our heads. I don't know why we figure they will, but they were created not to do right by us. But we keep thinking, oh, they're going to do right. They're going to do right. And I knew this whole loan forgiveness thing, it was going to go the way it's going right now. And it's going that way. So with Agri Academy and the Black Empowerment Through Agriculture, we show you how to start a small scale operation that you can, make a profit with, and then also you can build off that. Once you make a profit, you can expand it and scale it up and things like that.
I would be a bum if I did not give a shout out to our brother Chandler. Hey, how are you doing? I remember he called me back in I had just got here to Georgia. He was like, "There's a sister you need to talk to because I see people out here spreading misinformation about elderberries." And yes,
yes.
So shout out to him. Yes. And brother Robert Shropshire. And I have to give a shout out to our mods. Thank you, Michael. Two Michaels, our Cincinnati brother, Michael Wharton, Michael Powell, Mona Lachey, Samora BP, B1 Beauty Supply, and everyone else that is here joining us for this great constructive talk, because we are how everything is geared to keep us off track and keep us, just oblivious to anything. Is okay, let's point you towards this celebrity gossip. Let's point you toward being a consumer. We can buy all of the clothes we want, all the shea butter we want, but when the food starts drying up, we're going to be some well-dressed, hungry mugs. So
yes. And they got to start using those survival techniques, because people going to be coming for whatever you have. Yeah. It's going to be ugly.
And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to Urban Farm Sister. She is tagged in the description. Her name is right here, ticking across the bottom. But also another brother, I've been following his channel for about a year now. The Lead Farmer 73. I tag you in his comments. I'm like, hey, you need to talk to Nadia. She's doing a beekeeping. Urban Farm Sister should be here. So I keep plugging you, like, look, go ahead and talk to her. So question, someone besides enrolling, and that's what everyone needs to go do, please max out her class. Okay, I have to go catch up on last night's assignment because I was live. Max out the enrollment in Black Empowerment Through Agriculture. Okay, please. I took your course last year, And oh my gosh, I did not realize that there were so many. It just opened my eyes to a whole new world of agriculture, sod farming, solar farming, different types of bees. Shout out to brother Isaiah up at Hills Mountain Honey, okay, here in Blairsville, Georgia.
Yes.
What would you say to someone? Let's say I was someone and I wish this was real for me, but it's not. Let's say I have about 100 acres. I'm here in Georgia. I have 100 acres that my family, has passed down throughout the years. What advice would you give to me? Having 100 acres, what should I do with it, or what is my next step? Where should I start besides taking Black empowerment through agriculture?
Well, first you need to decide, like, you need to check your markets and see what's needed in your region. Um, right now there's a lot of stuff that's in shortage. So you can go to the grocery store, you can start there and be like, what's needed here? Or even if it's not in your direct city, Georgia's a big state, and there's a lot of things that you can export to, like say Atlanta or Macon or somewhere else. But you need to look at the markets and see what's needed, and not just grow random stuff. You need to see what is actually needed if you're trying to farm. um is growing flax sustainable? um what are you growing it for personal, or are you growing it for to sell it? But I'll let her answer that. But you need to figure out what is needed in your area, or what's in high demand even throughout the United States at this point. Like I told you, the avocado thing, that's going to be an issue. So if you live in places like California, or if you live in Florida, or you live in southern part of Georgia, if you don't really experience a frost where you live, so if you live in zone 8 and 9, you can actually grow avocados. If you live in zone 8, you might have to keep them in a greenhouse, because I know at sometimes there have been frost in those regions. But if you live like in the southern part of Florida, Miami and things like that, in that region down there, they grow great. I mean, there are some growers in California that are actually growing avocados. Um, that's a market that you need to get into. Flax to sell, flax milk, flax oil, feed. Again, that would be something you have to see if that's something that's needed in your region, or if there a high demand for flax right now. It may not be. Um, it takes quite a few months for that to grow, and then you have to harvest it. And I don't know if you have all that technology to do that, to harvest and all that stuff. But first, before I would jump into that venture, I would see if that's something that's really needed right now. There's other things that are desperately needed at this moment. Lettuce is always in demand because it's always being recalled. Um, so you need to look at things like that. Lettuce, also growing things that are out of season. So if you live in a region that's warm, you should grow things that can grow all year where you are, so they'll be available in the wintertime when other people can't get those things. Um, but yeah, I would look into the flax to make sure, number one, that that's something that's really needed. If not, see what is needed in your region. If you have land and things like that. Two Vision, good information, so on point. I have been receiving money not to farm for years now. Yes, yeah, that and it's out there. Put it in conservation. If you gotta say you live on land, it has like a marsh or something, they have wetland conservation, and those are still considered farms. So, and that's why if you take Black empowerment through agriculture, you'll learn what a farm is, and all these different things about conservation, and how that's still considered a farm, and how you can still file the Schedule F on your taxes. How you, if you want to sign up for the Farm Service Agency, so you can be in the running for those loans and stuff that they really don't give to us. I mean, we'll teach you how to do that. I don't even, I'm not gonna say not to, but at this rate, you see how things go when we get
Don't get your hopes up.
right. But yes, the conservation thing is something that we all need to look into, especially people that don't want to farm their land at this point. They need to put it in conservation. put it in conservation for 10 to 15 years. You can still use it for agritourism. You can take people on nature tours and things like that. You just can't farm it. You can't disrupt the land. Now, say you have an endangered species that lives on your land, you definitely would have to put it in conservation, because you can't do anything that will jeopardize that species, existing. But you should be getting paid.
Yeah.
Even if the money just covers the taxes, that's good. That's better than nothing. Um, and there's organizations that you have to go through and apply for that, and there's different amounts. Every state is different how much they pay for the conservation. But if you get that started, then they'll tell you, like, okay, I got this amount covered. I need to do this now to cover this amount. And so there's things you can do. And say you had 100 acres, like she was asking, and you wanted to farm. Say you wanted to farm collard greens or something. You could farm collard greens in a greenhouse on less than a half an acre and make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Because collard greens are like one of our staples in the Black community. And so if you wanted to have those mailing, have a mail order system or all types of stuff, you could do that, and people would buy them. And we ain't the only ones eat collard greens. Don't think
Right here, I'm doing my countertop system. So thank you so much. I have my countertop system, and like this is what is this? This is kale. These are kale seeds. Look at how small they are. So yes, I'm not gonna sit here and complain that I don't have the space to do it. I'm going ahead and start right on my countertop. So y'all will see that in my Instagram story.
Yes.
There's no excuse. Please, you will surprise yourself at what you can do. Oftentimes, there are people say like, "Well, I don't have a green thumb, and I could kill a cactus." It's like, okay, whatever. Those are excuses. Can you tell everybody how? Oh, go right ahead.
So I was gonna say, well, I offer classes, so I can show you how to do that as well. So I offer hydroponics classes, aquaponics classes, aquaculture, beekeeping classes, all types of classes. So there should be no reason why you should not. And then there's other people that offer classes in your region. If you're on Facebook and stuff, you look through those groups and see if there's like there's a Black beekeeping group, and we're like beekeepers across the United States. And so some of them will come right to your home and show you how to set up beekeeping. Some of them do it for free, and then some of them, that's their business. So you need to, make sure if they are, if you're going to pay them and things like that. But yeah, with the hydroponics, I notice everybody getting these aero gardens, and I teach hydroponics. And I teach you how to make your own systems, because some of those systems that you buy commercially, number one, they're too small for the plant themselves. It's kind of like to get your feet wet, so to say, because but you want to advance into something a little bigger, but still portable in the home, that you can grow a lot of stuff. I have a lot of videos where I've grown zucchini, I've grown collards, tomatoes, all types of stuff.
Everything.
Yes, pretty much. I even grew a moringa tree in hydroponics. So
yes,
sky's the limit. And I always test it out. My next thing is going to be these avocados. Trying to grow avocado in hydro and all this other stuff. And then I'm getting into cut flowers. That's another big industry that we don't even look at.
Let me tell you. Hang on one second. Okay. Cut flowers. When you mentioned your parents, that they had a flower shop. So I received this flower here from my sweetheart on a coma day. And apparently this is a forever rose. It lasts up to a year. So I researched the company behind it, and I believe like they launched and went into like the millions after the Kardashians, shared this rose on social media. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I saw a DIY similar to it. Y'all know me, I'm all about the DIYs. It's just cut flowers dipped in, I think, soy wax.
It's glycerin.
Or something like that. Glycerin? Okay.
They preserve them. They preserve them with glycerin.
There it
is. So yeah, they preserve them in glycerin. But that rose came probably from Ecuador. So it was imported. It came from Ecuador, and then they sprayed a whole bunch of pesticide on it before they got to you. And so that's the issue. I even we've talked about that because we talk about the cut flower industry in the class as well. But that's a major issue is pesticides. And that, I'm an entomologist, so I try to teach people how to organically control things that are going to feed on their plants. But pesticides are a major issue because that can either cause death, disease, mutations in your DNA, all types of stuff. And, people use those roses, like you have your rose there. They'll use those roses. They'll put them in their bath water. They'll put the petals and stuff in there. They'll put them in, put them on their bed. They'll put them on cakes and stuff, like when they're celebrating, not realizing that these things have chemicals on them, and they have not. They were never intended to be used that way. You were just supposed to look at it in the vase, and when it died, throw it away. They don't even have to. There's no regulation on them because they were not supposed to be used as consumable items. They were just supposed to be used as little art pieces. Then you just get rid of once they die. And so, we've exposed ourselves to all these things. When I see those videos where the women tell them, and they go viral, telling people to make rose oil, and when they boil the rose petals from the petals that they got from like Mother's Day or something, I'm like, no, don't do that.
Even boiling like orange peels, I'm like, that's not organic. Don't do that. And they'll like breathe it in and like I'll have a small spot at home. This one in the box on the insert, it says it's supposed to stay in the box, and that's what it stays in the box. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna leave it in the box. I'm gonna leave it alone.
But you see how
there's a whole industry and how we have knowledge within our community.
Yes, but you see how that you said that one rose went viral because they found a way to keep a dead rose from actually decomposing. And they made millions of dollars with that because the Kardashians got wind of it. Now think of that. We send flowers for all types of occasions and all this stuff, but we are not in the cut flower or the flower industry or the plant industry. And everybody got house plants now.
Yep.
We ain't growing our own house plants. We're buying them from these people that don't even respect us. Because that was a big issue on my social media, because I have all these people that follow me, and that was one of the things, is that one of the major people that they would buy their house plants from didn't even want to feature Black people on their website. And so it was this major thing. And I was like, y'all don't have to sit there and argue with them. Girl, y'all take some cuttings and start your own plants. It ain't this hard. I feel like sometimes you guys want to be accepted by these folks. I don't need their acceptance. I want to do my own stuff. So there's so many things that we can get into. That there's the house plants, there's the cut flowers, and then getting them back and forth, all this other stuff that people never looked at. Like, oh, you're right, that is an industry. They're making billions of dollars. Billions. Roses alone makes multi-billion dollars every year. Just roses, from Valentine's Day, Mother's Day to weddings. Billions of dollars they come from South America, and roses grow here in the United States. Like I told you, it's the same earth, same land. They grow here. If you got roses in your front yard, roses grow here. So they grow here. It's just a certain way you have to grow them. You have to harvest them and stuff. But they grow. And if you're good at growing your roses in your front yard, you'll be good at growing roses for cut flowers and things like that. So we just have to look. We have to think outside the box. We can do this. We can do these things. We just have to want to, but also we have to have somebody presenting these things to us. And that's the major issue, that we don't. Personal Kid said, Nadia, I definitely will contact you. I had major issues with be more into hydroponic leafy greens like kale, cilantro, and I'd like to. And okay, that's fine.
Like to get into growing. So yes, how would someone get in contact with you for consultation? Because you offer consultations as well as courses, and you have a wealth of knowledge on your YouTube channel. So I'm going to scroll through your YouTube channel while you tell everyone about that.
Okay, so you can get in contact with me. My email is nadiaruffin@agracademyinc.org. And we can schedule consultations. It depends. The price ranges depends on if you're organization or if you're individual, as well as if you're trying to set up a farm versus just personal gardening. So we have to figure out which one you're doing to let you know the price of that. Also, for the classes, so I'm moving all the classes to the Agri Academy website. So I'm trying to get them up by March, especially the gardening ones, since everybody's going to be in full swing by March. Most people are in different zones. They're already starting to garden and they're going to be outside. So I'm going to have an entomology class. Then I have beekeeping. Technically, you should have started a beekeeping class like back in November. You should have started ordering your bees and all that stuff. So when May came around, you could actually start your hives. But you can still take that class when it's up to learn what needs to be, what you need to do. And then see, consultations, classes, and then like yeah, we have the course here, the Black empowerment. And then if you're local and you're at a school, you're a teacher or something, we offer programs at the schools. We have a program we're doing now at a local Catholic school, and the children love it. They learn. We have fifth to eighth graders. We come in, we teach them every week something different about the agriculture industry, and so a lot of times, they're eating things and not realizing where it comes from. So they learn that. They learn where to, all types of stuff. We've already covered poultry. We covered dairy. Now we're covering mushrooms. They're going to learn how to actually cultivate mushrooms, but we had to first teach them what mushrooms were, which are fungi and all this stuff. And so we give them that foundation, and hopefully when they decide to go to, college or start a business or something, that it's in the agriculture field, so that we have more of us, in it.
Oh, come on, Michael. I'm beautiful. Thank you for all you do. Thank you to
You're
you,
welcome.
your staff, Rose Black, Rob. We have Kasim, Nida Ness, Rose Green. I love Rose names. It's so pretty. Brother Chandler and your young man Alexander. I just appreciate you coming back and really talk with us about something that is going to save our lives. And
Yes.
you're welcome back anytime, and anything that I can do to help you out and help spread your message. I thank you for what you're doing for me, inspiring me to go ahead. Hey, let's go ahead and grow some food. Let's go ahead and look at this. So I'm excited. Do you have any closing words for us today?
um yeah, just don't let, number one, science intimidate you. I know all this stuff seems like it's too much, but you must remember we were the agriculture industry, um before, even before slavery. We were cultivating and doing all the things that we need to do for ourselves, and slavery just interrupted that. But we built this country through agriculture, and so we can build our community through agriculture, our heritage through agriculture. And so I would hope that, the takeaway is that you understand how we got to where we are, and knowing how we got to where we are is, you know we don't want to fall down that same path again. We already know what type of people we're dealing with, and we know they're not going to change. They haven't changed. They've been in existence since 1862. And so, yeah, they ain't changing no time soon. They still up to their same tricks. So we gotta, navigate around that. Again, if you have any questions or anything, you can send me an email, Nadia Ruffin at agriacademyinc.org. And it was nice chatting with you guys this evening.
And before I forget, make sure you head over to Black Farmers Index and find your Black farmer. And shout out to Bill and Katie Green up in Seattle at Sky Island Farms. They put me on to that link because I was ordering everything when I was available to order stuff. I was going through Atlanta Harvest. But if you are looking for your Black farmer, go to blackfarmersindex.com. And once again, shout out to Bill and Katie up at Sky Island Farms. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow I will be back. Your sister out here working hard on the YouTube. I'll be back tomorrow with brother Willie Cartwright, and the title, I'll come up with it when I really sit down and think about it. But I will see y'all tomorrow as we talk about save to sane. Nadia, thank you so much. I'm sending you so many hugs, and I will see you next time. I'm in Cincy, and I'll see you back on these internet streets. All right.
All right. See you
Have a
later.
great one. Love you so much. Yeah, have a
Good
great
night.
one.
Bye bye.